Kalgoorlie teenager. A man found not guilty of manslaughter over the death of Elijah Doughty in Western Australia's goldfields has been sentenced to 3 years in jail on a lesser charge. Kalgoorlie elders said the decision was an injustice, leaving Indigenous people angry and disappointed. "When you get a decision like that, that hurts, and of course people are going to vent," Elder Trevor Donaldson said. The 14-year-old boy was fatally run over in Kalgoorlie in August last year, leading to riots and violent scenes as people gathered to protest over his death. A Supreme Court jury deliberated for 6 hours before finding the man, whose identity is suppressed, guilty of the lesser charge of dangerous driving occasioning death. Members of the packed public gallery yelled abuse at him and the jury, and the court was briefly adjourned to allow security to escort them outside. The verdict was greeted with grief and anger outside the courthouse in Kalgoorlie, where people had watched proceedings via a special video link. About 100 people marched down the city's main street, Hannan Street, with some carrying Indigenous flags and chanting, "What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now." The group was tightly flanked by riot police, but despite being vocal, there was not the same level of aggression or violence seen in last year's riot on the same street. Local elder Leon Thomas addressed the crowd, calling for calm at the request of Elijah's family. In his sentencing submissions, the man's defense lawyer Seamus Rafferty told the court there were no words that could adequately reflect his client's remorse. First, for the fact that his driving ultimately led to the death of a 14-year-old boy, and for the grief and sorrow that is caused for his immediate family and the wider community, he said. During the trial, the man admitted he was driving dangerously when he chased Elijah down a gravel track, but denied he was criminally negligent. He said he had gone to the area known as Gribble Creek to look for 2 motorbikes stolen from his home the day before. The man maintained police had told him to go there because the area was a known dumping ground. And when he arrived, he spotted the teenager on one of the bikes and made a split-second decision to chase him. The chase over about 100 meters lasted about 25 seconds. With the man's utility reaching an estimated speed of 67 km per hour when he ran over Elijah, who rolled or tumbled under the 2-ton utility. The man testified he knew he was too close to the teenager, but claimed he hit Elijah because the motorbike veered in front of his car, and he could not avoid the collision. The motorbike smashed into 3 pieces and Elijah died at the scene after suffering multiple fatal injuries. The court heard that in the days after the fatality, the man's house was burned down and his wife and 2 children had been moved out of WA because of concerns for their safety. The teenager's family, including his mother and grandfather, were in court throughout the trial, but made no comment as they left. "Walk a mile in our shoes." Indigenous elder. Speaking in Kalgoorlie after the verdict, Mr. Donaldson said the man's sentence was not justice. "And you wonder why people are angry? There's mothers, brothers, sisters feeling the hurt," he said. Mr. Donaldson said Aboriginal people were routinely ignored. "People point at us accusingly and say, 'Oh, what's wrong with them black fellas, what's their gripe?'" he said. "Walk a mile in our shoes and feel the hurt and the pain and the injustices that's been served upon us since time began here.